I'm making a playing cue, I'm not making an art cue. It's going to give a person a consistent cue to play with. It's going to be tactile. It's going to feel really good when you hit a ball. You're not going to get that same feel and touch with a lot of the mass-produced cues. The serious hobbyist should have at minimum a playing cue and a break cue. You never want to use your playing cue as your break cue. It compacts your tip, it makes it hard. It will end up getting super hard or popping off. Playing tips are not that well made to take the brute force of a break tip. Or a tip that's specifically made for breaking. Being a maker of cues, I do suggest that I'm a good entry-level custom cue. You don't get all of the fancy lines and inlays that a lot of cue makers do put into their cues, but you're going to have a very consistently playing cue for the price. For anyone that's getting serious or is serious in the pool, having a consistent playing cue is really important. It's something, it's a tool. It's a part of you. If you play a lot, it's just like an arm and leg. The more you play with it, the more you learn about it, the more you know how to use it. A good custom break cue can make a world of difference. You don't get the same feel because you're using a much harder tip. Depending on the construction of the cue, it's a little different. You are going for a power hit. Some people lose control of it. Good custom break cue will also give you consistency. Definitely want to talk to the cue maker and discuss what you do and don't like about certain cues. Breaking with someone else's break cue is a really good example of seeing what's out there. The more cues you get your hands on and touch and feel, the more you're going to find out what you do and don't like about other cues. Having an all-wood butt and being able to feel every hit is going to be way different from going to a mass-produced custom cue like Lacassie and Amuchi and Viking. Basically, the radial pin on the cues that I'll be making is what's called a wood-to-wood connection. The shaft doesn't have a brass pin like a lot of cues have. You're not screwing two metal pieces together to join the butt and the shaft together. You're basically using the pin to draw the two pieces together onto those facing surfaces. You get that transfer of energy from tip to butt. You have to take all that in consideration when you start getting into custom cues because you get to pick and choose what you want to have in it. Custom cues are always a lot more appreciated too because you bought something made for you. With full splice cues or using a solid piece of wood for the butt I do not plan on drilling out the butt for a weight bolt. It takes away from the natural balance of a cue and the feel of the cue. When you take the bumper off the tail end of a cue, it's going to be a solid piece of wood. The whole purpose of the weight bolt system is to make the cue adjustable weight. So if a person wants to play with an 18-ounce cue, they can put a small weight bolt in it. If they want to play with a 21-ounce cue, they can put a weight bolt at the tail end of the cue. Problem is all of that weight is at the tail end of the cue. A lot of cheaper cues, those weight bolts that screw in there like that, a lot of them will come loose, and that's where you can drop a cue and you can hear those weights basically tinging against each other. A lot of house cues do that too. The weight bolt will break loose from their epoxy in there. It sounds horrible. It will be a challenge to satisfy everyone because I don't have a weight bolt system, but I think the balance and the playability of the cues will trump being able to adjust the weight of a cue. The beginning pool player should try to use the same cue as much as they can because it's all about creating that consistency with your shot. If you have that consistency, you can take that, use the full advantage of any cue, but you have to create consistency with your stroke, with your shooting. When I played a lot, I exclusively only played with this cue. When I practiced and when I did anything, I didn't play pool without this, but then I would show up at a pool tournament sometimes and I would grab a house cue because I know within about the first 20 shots, I could get a feel for that cue and know what its capabilities are and be able to play not as proficient as I would with my own cue, but I would I could still make that cue ball dance a little bit. I could still make it react. Let's see, around I don't know, 8, 9 years old, east side of Houston, in a biker bar, a place called Frankie's. Pretty closely right in between the Hells Angels and the Banditos headquarters, but it was basically considered like neutral ground, so there wasn't a whole lot of fights that went on in the place. Frankie's dad was a really good pool player. He was a big money player around Houston. He got to know my dad. My dad went in there quite a bit. My dad didn't drink at the time, but he knew Frankie, he knew the family, so he would basically go in there, play the poker machine, and I played pool with Frankie's dad all night. Sparked a really huge interest into me. Everywhere I went, I wanted to play pool. A friend of mine, Tim Bass, and I played a lot together, and we would play long nights. This is where the symbol on my logo came from. We played so much at the barrack that all the cues got broke one time, and we started playing with a mop handle. We actually got really good at it, and we started playing people at the barracks for money with a mop handle, playing teams most of the time. It was really amazing. People would come out of the woodworks with pool cues. We had a really good, just straight game of pool, and we slaughtered a lot of people in those barracks.